at an upscale restaurant. When the bill reached $200,000, Lisbeth, Annalisa's mother-in-law, giggled and said she had forgotten her wallet at home. Everyone burst into laughter, as if it were just another familiar joke. Cornelius, the father-in-law, laughed heartily too, but the laughter faded when Annalisa, the daughter-in-law, didn't smile. She didn't come to dinner to hear the same joke again. Inside her was a quiet fatigue and deep reflection about her role and place in this family. Annalisa hadn't married Don just for love, she had hoped to build the complete family she never had growing up. Her own parents fought constantly, leaving her to grow up in emotional insecurity. Don, with his gentle and dependent nature, stirred something protective in her. She saw in him a childlike soul that needed sheltering. In the early days of their marriage, Don showed sincere care, though he lacked maturity. He regularly sought advice from his mother, for big decisions like career paths to minor ones like grocery shopping. Annalisa saw it as familial closeness, believing he would grow independent over time. But gradually, she realized that Don's dependence was not temporary, it was who he was. As time passed, the financial gap between Annalisa and Don became more apparent. Don worked a mid-level managerial job with a modest, stable income, but he spent frivolously on fishing gear, hunting equipment, and expensive tech, short-lived pleasures. Meanwhile, Annalisa was a financial director at a prestigious firm, with a high income and excellent money management skills, honed through years of independence. Since they married, Don's parents frequently hosted family gatherings. At first, they were simple and warm, but over time, these events grew increasingly extravagant. Birthdays became grand parties, anniversaries turned into lavish celebrations. Even minor occasions were treated like luxury banquets. Guests multiplied, including distant relatives she barely knew. The meals were always extravagant, held at top-tier restaurants or grand banquet halls. Annalisa slowly realized these events came with an unspoken expectation: she was footing the bill. Things spiraled out of control, and she felt she was carrying the financial weight of an entire family, with no fair share or support. From these increasingly ostentatious parties, a bitter truth emerged: Annalisa had become the primary sponsor of her husband's family. And no one cared how she felt or what she sacrificed. Lisbeth was particularly skilled at emotional manipulation, using sweet words laced with subtle pressure to shift financial responsibilities to Annalisa. She'd say things like, "Oh, Annalisa, you're so good with money. Don's hopeless with finances. Thank goodness for you," delivered with a smile. But Annalisa came to see it for what it was, not praise, but obligation masked as affection. And Don, the husband she once hoped would mature, remained silent. He didn't oppose his mother, he even saw Annalisa's spending as natural. "You make more anyway, it's not a big deal for you," he'd say lightly, as if love and money were interchangeable. At first, Annalisa tried to accept it. She wanted to be the ideal wife, the perfect daughter-in-law, yearning for love and acceptance from her in-laws. She bought lavish gifts, designer bags for Lisbeth, luxury watches for Cornelius. She planned elaborate celebrations, booked high-end venues, decorated with care, and of course, paid for everything. But the sacrifices didn't stop at special events. Their demands grew bolder: luxury vacations, expensive home upgrades, electronic gifts, and full coverage of her in-laws' household bills. Meanwhile, Annalisa gave up her own small joys. She stopped buying new clothes, declined personal trips, cut down dinners with friends, just to meet the ever-expanding expectations of her in-laws. Despite everything, she never received real gratitude. Instead, silence and assumption settled in, as if her contributions were simply expected. Inside her, a quiet storm of resentment, loneliness, and pain started to rise, waiting to break. Annalisa's sacrifices became invisible as her in-laws' requests escalated. Lisbeth began veiling even bolder demands with supposed concern for Don or the children's future. She'd whisper things like, "You don't want Don to feel ashamed for not providing, do you? Or, this is for the family. Annalisa, you understand." These words tied Annalisa to a role she never chose, an endless provider. Exhausted from work, managing complex corporate finances, she watched her earnings drain into non-essential family expenses, unacknowledged and unappreciated. She felt like a stranger in her own life, not a wife. Not a dreamer, but a walking wallet for her husband's family. Her memories of a burdened mother and a fractured home resurfaced, reminding her, this wasn't the life she dreamed of. Though she once longed for a complete family, she now saw she was trapped in a cycle of pressure, exploitation, and solitude. The final straw came on what seemed like another family celebration. Lisbeth made yet another familiar request, this time for a spa retreat for her back pain. She claimed she and Cornelius couldn't afford it on their small pension. You understand, right, Annalisa? She asked. Her voice sweet but calculating. Annalisa didn't respond. She simply handed over her credit card, an automatic gesture by now. But inside, she was breaking. This was no longer about money. It was about dignity, about being treated as nothing more than a bank account. Her grandmother's old advice echoed in her mind like a bell. Don't let anyone ride on your back, or you'll carry them your whole life and never stand up straight. For the first time in years, Annalisa made a silent decision. She would no longer stay quiet. The upcoming anniversary party of Lisbeth and Cornelius would be her moment. Annalisa prepared carefully, not to cause a scandal, but to speak the truth she had hidden for so long. Out of fear of being labeled difficult, still hoping for acceptance, she gathered documents, restaurant bills, gift receipts, bank transfers for travel, renovation invoices, electronics purchases, monthly expenses for her in-laws, all neatly filed. She didn't want to just speak, she wanted to show, clearly and calmly, the burden she had carried in silence. The night of the celebration arrived. The venue, an opulent restaurant, was glowing with lights. Tables draped in white linen. Fresh flowers, soft violin music filled the air. Guests in designer attire laughed, toasted, and chatted. Lisbeth, in an expensive gown, beamed as guests congratulated her. Cornelius stood quietly. Dawn sat beside Annalisa, restless, sensing something was about to happen. Annalisa remained quiet, her gaze cool and distant. When the meal ended and the bill arrived, the server placed it before Lisbeth, who smiled and said as always, "Oh, Annalisa dear, would you mind handling it as usual?" The table fell silent. Everyone looked at her, expecting the same routine. But Annalisa didn't reach for her wallet. Instead, she opened the anniversary gift box, where guests had left envelopes, and calmly counted. There's $230,000 here. That should cover dinner. Silence. Then, she lifted the file folder. And this, she said clearly, is my anniversary gift to you. One by one, she displayed the pages, bills, receipts, transfers, almost 1 million rubles, she said, for your home, utilities, parties, gifts, vacations, electronics, nights like tonight, and not once has anyone asked if I'm okay, if I'm tired, if I even agree. Gasps. Dawn froze. Cornelius looked down. Lisbeth flushed with anger and shame. I'm not here to shame anyone. Annalisa continued. I just want the truth out. I can't carry everyone's life anymore. I want to live my own. She closed the folder, placed it on the table, and stood up. This wasn't rebellion, it was a farewell. To silence, to being used, to the role she never chose. Annalisa had chosen truth and freedom.